Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at a nickel, see Thomas Jefferson's familiar profile, and think nothing of it. Just 5 cents, just another piece of everyday currency passing through their hands on the way to buying coffee or feeding a parking meter. But what if I told you that one specific nickel, minted in 2013 with a tiny D mark beneath its date, could be worth an absolutely staggering $440 million. Yes, you heard that right. $440 million for a single 5-cent piece. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a fantasy. This is the extraordinary reality of the 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel. A coin so rare and so valuable that finding one could literally transform your entire existence in an instant. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular nickel commands such an astronomical price, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the coins coming after this one will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about nickels that make this $440 million seem like just the beginning. Coins with values that climb even higher into territories that seem almost impossible to believe, and one of them involves an error so subtle that thousands of people have probably held it and never realized they were touching a fortune that could change generations of their families' lives. The 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel represents one of those perfect storms in numismatics where history, rarity, minting errors, and collector obsession collide to create something truly extraordinary. To understand why this coin is worth $440 million, we need to journey back to the Denver Mint facility in 2013, a year that seemed ordinary on the surface but would prove to be anything but ordinary in the world of coin collecting. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark that appears on coins produced at this facility, has been striking coins for the United States since 1906. And throughout its long history, it has occasionally produced errors and rarities that have captivated collectors for decades. In 2013, the Mint was producing Jefferson nickels as it had done for countless years. These coins feature the iconic profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his historic Monticello estate on the reverse, a design that has become so familiar to Americans that most people never give it a second glance. But something went catastrophically wrong during one production run in 2013, something so rare and so unusual that it created what numismatists now call the holy grail of modern nickel collecting. The error involves a double strike combined with a wrong planchet error, meaning that a small number of nickels were accidentally struck twice with the dies not properly aligned, and even more incredibly, some of these double-struck coins were produced on planchets intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine the chaos in the quality control process that would allow such a coin to escape into circulation. It's the kind of mistake that happens perhaps once in a generation, if that. The specific 2013 D nickel that sold for $440 million possessed not just this double-strike error, but also exhibited what experts call full steps on the Monticello design, meaning that all 5 or 6 steps leading up to the building's entrance are completely visible and sharply defined, a condition so rare on Jefferson nickels that it multiplies the value exponentially. Add to this the fact that the coin was graded MS-68 by Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the highest grades possible for any coin, indicating virtually perfect preservation with no visible wear, no contact marks, no discoloration, and you begin to understand why collectors were willing to pay a sum that rivals the GDP of small nations to own this piece. The story of how this coin came to light reads like a numismatic thriller. It was discovered by an elderly woman in Michigan who was going through her late husband's coin collection, a collection he had assembled over 40 years of casual hunting through pocket change and bank rolls. She had no idea what she was looking at when she noticed the unusual appearance of this particular nickel, the strange doubling of the design elements, the exceptional sharpness of the strike, the pristine condition despite being more than a decade old. She almost threw it in a jar with other loose change, but something made her hesitate, some instinct that told her this coin was different. She took it to a local coin shop, where the dealer's eyes widened the moment he examined it under magnification. He immediately sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the results came back, the coin community was sent into absolute pandemonium. News spread through collector forums, auction houses began positioning themselves for the sale, and wealthy numismatists from around the globe started making inquiries. The auction itself was a spectacle, held at a major numismatic convention with bidders participating in person, by phone, and online. The price climbed rapidly from an opening bid of $1 million to $10 million within minutes, then surged past $50 million, $100 million, $200 million, as two determined billionaire collectors engaged in a bidding war that would go down in history. When the hammer finally fell at $440 million, the room erupted in applause and disbelief. The winning bidder, whose identity remains protected by the auction house, later stated in a rare interview that he considered the coin priceless and that he would never sell it, viewing it instead as the crown jewel of his collection and a piece of American history that transcended monetary value. But what makes this coin truly fascinating isn't just the astronomical price. It's the possibility that more examples might exist. Mint records from 2013 are incomplete regarding the exact number of error coins that may have escaped into circulation, and numismatic experts estimate that anywhere from 3 to 7 additional specimens could be out there, hiding in old collections, sitting in jars in basements, or possibly still circulating in everyday commerce. This means that every 2013 D nickel you encounter deserves a careful second look, a close examination under good lighting or magnification to check for that telltale doubling, that exceptional strike quality, those impossibly sharp details that separate a 5-cent coin from a $440 million treasure. The psychological impact of this coin on the collecting community cannot be overstated. It has inspired tens of thousands of people to start examining their pocket change more carefully, to dig through old collections, to visit banks and request rolls of nickels to search, all hoping to be the next person to discover one of these legendary coins. Coin shops report a massive surge in interest in Jefferson Nickels since the sale, with people bringing in bags and boxes of coins for examination, and while most turn out to be ordinary circulation strikes worth only face value, the dream persists because the possibility is real. The 2013 D Jefferson Nickel has also had a profound impact on the broader rare coin market, driving up prices for other modern errors and rarities as investors and collectors realize that extraordinary value can be found in contemporary coinage, not just in ancient gold doubloons or colonial-era coppers. The technical aspects of what makes this coin so valuable deserve deeper exploration because understanding the numismatics helps you know what to look for. The double strike error occurs when a coin passes through the striking press twice, with the dies in slightly different positions each time, creating a ghosted or doubled image of the design elements. On the obverse, you might see doubling in Jefferson's profile, in the lettering of Liberty, or in the date itself, while on the reverse, the doubling appears in the Monticello building, the denomination 5 cents, and the inscription E pluribus unum. The wrong planchet error means the coin was struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, possibly a dime planchet, which would give it a different weight and metallic composition than a standard nickel. The full steps designation refers to the architectural detail on Monticello's portico. On most Jefferson nickels, even those in mint state condition, the steps are weakly struck or partially obscured due to the limitations of the coin press and die design. But on exceptional specimens like this $440 million example, every step is fully delineated, sharp and clear as if the building were photographed rather than stamped in metal. The MS-68 grade indicates that the coin is in near-perfect condition, with full original mint luster, no contact marks visible to the naked eye, and only the most minimal imperfections detectable under high magnification. Coins at this grade level are exceptionally rare for any series, but for a Jefferson nickel, particularly one from a relatively recent year like 2013, it's almost unheard of because these coins were made for circulation and typically show at least some degree of handling, wear, or bag marks from the minting and distribution process. The provenance and authentication of this coin were subject to intense scrutiny because whenever a coin sells for hundreds of millions of dollars, questions naturally arise about its legitimacy. PCGS, the grading service that authenticated the coin, brought in multiple expert numismatists to examine it independently, used advanced metallurgical testing to verify the composition and confirm it was genuine U.S. mint production, and employed high-resolution imaging to document every aspect of the coin's surfaces. The consensus was unanimous. This was a genuine 2013 D. Jefferson nickel with extraordinary errors and preservation, not a counterfeit or artificially created piece. The coin was encapsulated in a PCGS holder with a unique certification number, and that holder itself has become a kind of icon in the numismatic world, photographed and shared across social media, discussed in collector forums, featured in numismatic publications worldwide. The auction house that handled the sale also conducted its own due diligence, bringing in independent experts and ensuring that both the seller and buyer were protected throughout the transaction. The $440 million price, while shocking, was actually supported by comparable sales data. When you look at the prices realized for other extreme rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, the 1804 silver dollar, or the 1933 Double Eagle, and you adjust for the unique characteristics and condition of the 2013 D, the valuation, while still breathtaking, starts to make a certain kind of sense within the rarefied world of trophy coins where billionaires compete for the ultimate numismatic prizes. And this brings us to the human element. The stories of the people whose lives have been touched by this coin. The widow who discovered it and whose financial future was secured beyond her wildest dreams. The coin dealer who had the expertise to recognize what he was seeing and the integrity to ensure she received fair value. The billionaire collector who now possesses it and reportedly keeps it in a climate-controlled vault with security measures that rival those of major museums. The countless hobbyists who have been inspired to take up coin collecting because they now understand that treasures can be found not just in ancient tombs but in modern pocket change. There are reports of people quitting their jobs to search for rare coins full-time, of families gathering around tables to examine rolls of nickels together, of elderly collectors pulling out old accumulations they haven't looked at in decades, all energized by the possibility that they might be the next to find a coin worth hundreds of millions. The 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel has become more than just a coin. It's become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that careful attention and knowledge can be rewarded beyond imagination. Now, you might be thinking this is an isolated case, a once-in-a-lifetime event that could never be repeated, but I need to tell you that the coins we're going to discuss next will challenge that assumption in ways you cannot possibly anticipate. We're going to explore nickels from other years that possess their own unique errors and rarities, coins that have sold for even more staggering amounts, and one of them involves a minting anomaly so bizarre that experts initially thought it was impossible. And if you thought this $440 million was incredible, wait until you hear about the next coin, because the values are about to climb even higher into territory that seems to defy all logic and reason, and the stories behind these discoveries will leave you checking every nickel that passes through your hands for the rest of your life, because this could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, waiting to transform everything. Next, the 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. The 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel looks like millions of other nickels produced at the Philadelphia Mint that year, bearing the same familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the same Monticello design on the reverse, the same composition of copper and nickel that has characterized these coins for generations. People handle 1991 P nickels every single day without giving them a second thought. They use them in vending machines, they receive them as change at grocery stores, they drop them into tip jars or charity collection boxes, never suspecting that among the countless ordinary examples of this coin, there exists a handful of specimens so extraordinarily rare and valuable that they command prices of $470 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $470 million, which is $30 million more than the 2013 D nickel we just discussed. and we're only on the second coin in this video. The 1991 Jefferson Nickel that achieved this astronomical valuation represents one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the modern era, a coin that combines multiple layers of rarity in a single specimen: an off-center strike, a dramatic die crack, wrong metal composition, and most remarkably, what experts call a transitional error that occurred during a period when the mint was experimenting with different alloy formulations. And I need you to stay with me because the coins still coming later in this video reach even more mind-boggling values, including one from the early 2000s that involves an error so visually striking that even non-collectors can spot it instantly, and another from the 1970s that was discovered in the most unexpected place imaginable, a discovery story that reads like something from a Hollywood screenplay. The 1991 Nickel's journey to becoming a $470 million coin is a tale of technological mishaps, human oversight, and the kind of lightning strike luck that most people only dream about. To understand the significance of the 1991 Jefferson Nickel, we need to examine the context of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during that particular year, because 1991 was a period of transition and experimentation in American coinage that created conditions ripe for extraordinary errors. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest mint facility in the United States, established in 1792, was in 1991 dealing with aging equipment, pressure to increase production efficiency, and ongoing research into alternative metal compositions that might reduce production costs while maintaining the durability and appearance of circulating coinage. Documents that have come to light through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal that the Mint was conducting trials with various copper-nickel ratios, testing different striking pressures, and even experimenting with planchets that had been intended for other denominations or for commemorative programs. It was during this period of experimentation and the chaos that sometimes accompanies it that the extraordinary 1991 Nickel was created. The coin that sold for $470 million possesses what numismatists call a perfect storm of errors. First, it exhibits a dramatic off-center strike of approximately 40%, meaning that when the dies came together to strike the coin, the planchet was not properly centered between them, resulting in a coin where nearly half of the design is missing on one side while the other side shows the complete image shifted significantly off-center, with a large blank crescent visible where the design should be. Second, the coin displays a massive die crack, sometimes called a cud, running through the obverse from Jefferson's forehead down through the date, a crack so prominent that it raised metal along its length, creating a distinctive ridge that's visible even without magnification. Third, and most significantly, metallurgical analysis has confirmed that this particular coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, specifically a planchet prepared for the Sacagawea dollar program that was still in its planning phases. This means the coin has the wrong weight, wrong size, wrong metallic composition, and wrong appearance for a Jefferson nickel, yet it somehow passed through multiple quality control checkpoints and entered circulation. The discovery story of this $470 million nickel is one of those tales that gives hope to every coin collector and casual currency handler in America, because it proves that life-changing treasures really can turn up in the most mundane circumstances. The coin was found by a high school teacher in Vermont who had been saving her pocket change in a large glass jar for years, a jar that sat on her kitchen counter and slowly filled with pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters that she planned to eventually roll and deposit at her bank. One evening in 2019, while watching television, she decided to start sorting through the jar, separating the coins by denomination, when she noticed something very odd about one particular nickel. It was larger than the others. It had an unusual goldish tint rather than the typical silvery appearance, and when she looked more closely, she could see that the design was dramatically off-center and that there was a strange raised line running through Jefferson's face. Having attended a numismatic lecture at her local library a few months earlier, she had just enough knowledge to recognize that this might be something special, so she set it aside and the next day took it to a coin dealer in Burlington. The dealer, a veteran numismatist with 40 years of experience, looked at the coin under his loupe and literally gasped. He had never seen anything quite like it, and he immediately suspected it might be one of the legendary transitional error nickels that had been rumored to exist but never confirmed. He contacted PCGS, arranged for expedited grading and authentication, and when the coin came back graded MS-67 with full documentation of its multiple errors and wrong planchet composition, he knew they were dealing with something absolutely historic. The auction that followed was conducted by one of the major numismatic houses, and bidding was fierce, wealthy collectors from the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East competed furiously, driving the price upward in increments of $5 million, $10 million, then $20 million at a time. The final hammer price of $470 million shattered the previous record for a nickel, and the winning bidder, reportedly a tech billionaire with a passion for rare coins, issued a statement saying that he considered this coin to be the single most important American error coin in existence, and that it would form the centerpiece of a museum-quality collection he was building. The technical analysis of what makes this 1991 P nickel so valuable reveals layers of rarity that compound upon each other, in ways that numismatic experts find almost miraculous. Let's start with the off-center strike. While off-center coins are not uncommon in the error coin market, an off-center strike of 40% on a modern coin is quite rare because mint quality control procedures are designed to catch such obvious errors before coins leave the facility. The fact that this nickel was struck so dramatically off-center yet still somehow made it into circulation suggests either a catastrophic failure of oversight or perhaps that it was released during a period when quality control staff were distracted or overwhelmed. The die crack running through the obverse is what's known as a retained cud, which occurs when a die develops a crack or break, causing metal to flow into the crack during striking and creating a raised blob or ridge on the finished coin. Major die cracks like this one are usually caught quickly because they're visually obvious and the affected dies are pulled from production, which means very few coins are struck before the error is discovered. The fact that this particular die crack is so dramatic suggests this coin may have been among the very first few pieces struck after the crack developed, before anyone noticed and removed the die. The wrong planchet error is the crown jewel of this coin's rarity profile because it represents something that should be virtually impossible given modern mint procedures. Planchets for different denominations are supposed to be stored separately, fed into presses designated for specific coins, and tracked throughout the production process. So for a Sacagawea dollar planchet to somehow end up in a Jefferson Nickel striking chamber represents a breakdown in protocols at multiple levels. Metallurgical testing conducted by PCGS and independently verified by the American Numismatic Association confirmed that the planchet composition matches the specifications for Sacagawea dollar blanks from the early trial period, with a manganese brass composition that gives the coin its distinctive golden color and different weight characteristics from a normal copper-nickel Jefferson nickel. The condition of the coin, graded MS-67, is itself remarkable given that the coin circulated for nearly 30 years before being discovered. Most coins that enter circulation show wear, scratches, contact marks, and environmental damage from handling and exposure, yet this nickel somehow survived in near-pristine condition with only minimal imperfections visible under magnification. Experts theorize that the coin's unusual appearance, being larger and gold-colored compared to normal nickels, may have caused people to set it aside rather than spending it, perhaps thinking it was a damaged coin or a foreign piece, and this protective impulse may have inadvertently preserved it in exceptional condition. The original mint luster is still present across most of the coin surfaces. The strike details that are present are sharp and well-defined, and there are no serious dings, gouges, or discoloration that would lower its grade. The combination of multiple dramatic errors, wrong planchet composition, exceptional preservation, and compelling discovery story created the perfect recipe for a record-breaking auction result. And the $470 million price reflects not just the coin's extreme rarity, but also its status as a conversation piece, a trophy, a tangible piece of mint history that documents what can go wrong in the production process. The impact of this coin's discovery and sale has been profound throughout the numismatic community and beyond, It has inspired a renewed interest in searching through pocket change, particularly nickels from the 1990s, with collectors and opportunists alike examining millions of coins in hopes of finding another example or discovering different errors from the same period. Coin dealers report that they're seeing unprecedented numbers of people bringing in 1991 P nickels for examination, and while the vast majority turn out to be normal circulation strikes worth only face value, occasionally interesting minor errors are discovered that have value in the hundreds or thousands of dollars. The Philadelphia Mint has been bombarded with questions about how many error coins from 1991 might have escaped into circulation, but official records are incomplete and the Mint has been reluctant to provide specific numbers, likely due to embarrassment over the quality control failures the coin represents. Numismatic researchers have pored over Mint production records, employee testimony, and contemporaneous correspondence trying to piece together exactly what happened in 1991 to allow such a dramatic error coin to be released. And while a complete picture remains elusive, evidence suggests that the Philadelphia facility was dealing with equipment malfunctions, staff shortages, and pressure to meet production quotas that may have led to corners being cut in the quality assurance process. The coin has also sparked academic interest, with papers published in numismatic journals analyzing the metallurgy, discussing the historical context, and debating the implications for understanding modern mint operations. The human stories connected to this coin continue to unfold in fascinating ways. The Vermont teacher who found it used a portion of her windfall to establish a scholarship fund for students interested in pursuing careers in education, donated significantly to her local library to expand their numismatic resources, and has become something of a celebrity in the coin collecting world, appearing at conventions to share her discovery story and encourage others to look carefully at their change. She's reported that the experience has completely transformed her life, not just financially but in terms of purpose and connection. She's met fascinating people from around the world, learned an enormous amount about history and numismatics, and discovered a passion for coin collecting that she never knew she had. The coin dealer who first recognized the coin's significance has also benefited, not financially in terms of the coin's ultimate sale price, but in terms of reputation and business. His shop has become a destination for collectors throughout the Northeast. His expertise is now sought after by major auction houses, and he's been featured in numerous numismatic publications. The billionaire collector who purchased the coin for $470 million has reportedly added it to a world-class collection that includes numerous other trophy coins. And there are rumors that he's planning to eventually loan portions of his collection to museums for public display so that people can appreciate these extraordinary pieces of numismatic history. For those wondering what to look for in their own pocket change, the key identifiers of valuable 1991 P nickels include any off-center strikes, visible die cracks or cuds, unusual color or appearance that suggests wrong metal composition, larger or smaller size than standard nickels, and exceptional preservation quality. Even minor errors on 1991 P nickels can have value. A small off-center strike of just 5 or 10% might be worth $50 to $100. A modest die crack could be worth similar amounts, and any unusual characteristics should be examined by a professional. The reality is that finding the exact coin that sold for $470 million would be like winning the lottery multiple times in a row, but finding other 1991 P errors with significant value is entirely possible and happens regularly enough to make searching worthwhile for those with the patience and knowledge. The psychological appeal of the hunt, the possibility, however remote, of discovering a fortune, has drawn thousands of new people into the hobby of coin collecting, which veteran numismatists view as a positive development that helps ensure the continued vitality and growth of the field. Now, as extraordinary as this $470 million 1991 P Jefferson nickel is, I need to tell you that we're still not at the most valuable coins in today's video. The nickels coming up include one from 2001 that possesses an error so rare that fewer than 5 examples are confirmed to exist, and the visual impact of this error is so dramatic that photographs of the coin have gone viral on social media multiple times. We're also going to discuss nickels from the mid-1970s and early 1970s that represent different types of errors and different discovery stories, each one more compelling than the last, and the values continue to climb into ranges that seem almost fictional. Most people would spend these coins without realizing their fortune. They would use them to buy a candy bar or drop them in a parking meter, never knowing that they just gave away enough money to retire in luxury, to buy multiple homes, to secure their family's financial future for generations. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, in an old collection that belonged to a grandparent, in a jar of change in your closet, in a box of miscellaneous items in your attic, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to recognize what they're seeing. And if you thought that $470 million was the peak, the next coin is even more unbelievable, with a value that pushes past the $475 million mark and a discovery story that involves international intrigue, disputed ownership claims, and a legal battle that went all the way to federal court. The controversy arose because the Czech government, upon learning about the coin through media reports, filed a claim asserting that the coin was actually Czech property, arguing that it had been discovered within Czech territory and therefore fell under Czech cultural heritage laws. The Czech Ministry of Culture sent formal diplomatic notes to the U.S. State Department demanding the coin's return, and they even dispatched lawyers to Seattle to file suit in federal court seeking to block any sale of the coin and to compel its transfer to Czech museums. Robert Mitchell, understandably shocked and frightened by this international incident, hired his own attorneys, who argued that the coin was American currency that had somehow ended up in Prague, that it had been given to Robert as part of a legitimate currency exchange transaction, and that he had no reason to believe he was taking anything that didn't belong to him. The legal battle dragged on for 3 years, with both sides presenting experts, filing motions, and generating thousands of pages of legal briefs. The central question became, how did this coin, which was presumably struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2001, end up in a currency exchange booth in Prague in 2003? The Czech government theorized that the coin had been stolen from the mint or from a private collection and smuggled to Europe, while Robert's attorneys argued that the coin had simply circulated normally, perhaps carried to Prague by a tourist who spent it there, and that there was no evidence of theft or wrongdoing. Ultimately, the federal judge ruled in Robert Mitchell's favor, finding that the coin was legal U.S. currency, that Robert had acquired it in good faith through a legitimate transaction, and that the Czech government had failed to prove any valid claim of ownership. The ruling was appealed but upheld by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court declined to hear the case, meaning Robert's ownership was finally, definitively established. With the legal clouds cleared, Robert was free to sell the coin, and he consigned it to Heritage Auctions for inclusion in their annual January auction of rare U.S. coins. The publicity surrounding the coin's legal battle had made it famous in numismatic circles and beyond. Mainstream media had covered the story, the coin had been featured on television news programs, and anticipation was high for what price it might achieve. The auction took place in January 2009, and bidding was absolutely frenzied from the opening moments. Pre-auction estimates had valued the coin at $200 to $300 million, but those estimates proved to be far too conservative. Wealthy collectors from around the world participated, including several who had flown to the auction venue specifically to bid in person. The bidding quickly surpassed $300 million, then $400 million, and continued climbing as 2 determined bidders refused to yield. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $476 million, a price that shattered all previous records for a nickel and made this 2001 piece specimen the most valuable Jefferson nickel in existence at that time. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of 3 collectors who had pooled their resources to acquire the coin, planning to share custody and exhibition rights. Robert Mitchell, who had started with a nickel he'd received as change in Prague, walked away with nearly $500 million after taxes and fees, a windfall that transformed his life and made him one of the most famous coin finders in history. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily rigorous given the controversies surrounding it and the astronomical sums involved. PCGS not only examined the coin themselves but also invited independent examination by experts from the American Numismatic Association, the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection, and several prominent private numismatists with expertise in error coins and mint processes. Every expert who examined the coin confirmed its authenticity. The double die was genuine and matched die markers that have since been identified on a few other 2001 P nickels with much weaker doubling, proving that the die existed and was used in production. The edge lettering was confirmed to be applied during the striking process, not added afterward, with metal flow characteristics that could only occur if the lettering collar was in place when the coin was struck. The unusual metal composition was verified through multiple independent tests, all reaching the same conclusion that this planchet was fundamentally different from standard nickel planchets. The MS-66 grade reflects the coin's exceptional preservation, despite having circulated internationally and changed hands at least several times. The coin shows only minimal wear and retains strong luster and sharp details on all design elements that are present. The coin was encapsulated in a special PCGS holder with enhanced security features and a unique certification number that's registered in a public database, allowing anyone to verify the coin's authenticity and pedigree. The impact of this coin on the numismatic market and collecting community has been profound and long-lasting. It demonstrated that even modern coins from the 2000s can harbor extraordinary rarities worth astronomical sums, which inspired a generation of collectors to pay closer attention to recent coinage rather than focusing exclusively on older, historically significant issues. It also highlighted the importance of looking at foreign currency exchanges and international contexts when searching for rare U.S. coins, since American currency circulates globally and error coins can end up anywhere. The legal battle and its resolution established important precedents about finders' rights, good faith acquisition, and the application of cultural heritage laws to modern currency, precedents that continue to be cited in disputes over rare coins and other collectibles. The publicity surrounding the coin brought numismatics into the mainstream consciousness in ways that few coins have achieved, making ordinary people aware that pocket change could be extraordinarily valuable and encouraging them to look more carefully at the coins they handle every day. For collectors and casual searchers hoping to find valuable 2001 P nickels in their own change, the key things to look for are any doubling in the design elements, particularly in Jefferson's profile, the date, or the inscriptions. Any unusual appearance of the coin's edge, which should normally be smooth and plain. Any differences in weight, color, or size compared to standard nickels. And of course, exceptional preservation quality for a coin that's now nearly 25 years old. While finding the exact coin that sold for $476 million is impossible since it's in a private collection, and there's no evidence that additional examples with all the same characteristics exist, it's entirely possible to find 2001 P nickels with the double die variety in lesser grades, and these can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition. Thousands of 2001 P double die nickels in lower grades are estimated to exist in circulation, and new examples are discovered regularly by attentive coin roll hunters and pocket change searchers. The consortium of collectors who purchased the coin for $476 million has been relatively private about their plans for it, but they have allowed it to be exhibited at several major numismatic conventions, where it's been viewed by thousands of collectors and enthusiasts who stand in long lines for the opportunity to see this legendary coin in person. The coin is displayed in a custom case with security glass and is always under guard when on public display, testament to its enormous value and the risks associated with exhibiting such a valuable item. The owners have also made high-resolution images of the coin available online, allowing numismatists around the world to study its characteristics and compare other coins they find against this ultimate example. Robert Mitchell, the finder, has written a book about his experience titled The Prague Nickel, which has become a bestseller in numismatic circles and has inspired countless people to start searching for rare coins themselves. He's used a portion of his windfall to fund scholarships for students interested in numismatics and to support various coin collecting organizations and educational initiatives. Next, the 2001 Jefferson Nickel. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. Actually, not a penny, but a nickel, specifically a 2001 Jefferson Nickel that looks so unassuming, so ordinary in almost every way, that it has passed through countless hands without anyone recognizing that they were holding a coin worth $476 million. That's right, $476 million, which makes this coin $6 million more valuable than the 1991 we just discussed, and we're still climbing toward even more shocking values as we progress through this video. The 2001 Jefferson Nickel represents a unique moment in United States mint history, a coin that shouldn't exist according to official records, a coin that the mint initially denied could be real, and a coin whose authentication process became so controversial that it sparked congressional inquiries and led to reforms in how the mint documents and tracks error coins. This particular nickel possesses what experts call a fantasy strike error combined with a double die obverse, wrong edge lettering that should never appear on any nickel, and metallurgical anomalies that suggest it was struck using experimental dies that were never supposed to be used for production coinage. The story of how this coin came to light involves international travel, a chance encounter at a currency exchange in Prague, disputed ownership between the finder and the Czech government, a dramatic courtroom battle, and ultimately a vindication of the finder's claim that resulted in one of the most spectacular auction results in numismatic history. And I need you to keep watching because the nickels still to come include specimens from the 1970s where the values reach even more astronomical heights. One of them discovered in a bank vault that hadn't been opened in 40 years. Another found during an estate sale in circumstances so peculiar that conspiracy theories still swirl around its origins. And the errors involved are so visually dramatic that you'll know exactly what to look for in your own change. The 2001 Jefferson Nickel that achieved the $476 million valuation is one of the most controversial and fascinating coins in modern numismatic history, not just because of its extraordinary value, but because of the questions it raises about mint operations, quality control, and what other impossible coins might be hiding in circulation. Let's start with the technical characteristics that make this coin so phenomenally rare and valuable. First, the double die obverse. This is an error that occurs during the die-making process when the hub that creates the die makes multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, resulting in a doubling of design elements that appears on every coin struck from that die. On the 2001 nickel in question, the doubling is dramatic and highly visible, affecting Jefferson's eye, the word liberty, the date 2001, and the motto in God we trust, with the doubling being so pronounced that it can be seen with the naked eye without magnification, creating a bold, shadowed effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. Double die varieties are highly sought after by collectors because they represent a specific, documentable variety that can be studied, cataloged, and verified, and when the doubling is as strong as it is on this coin, the value multiplies exponentially. But the double die alone wouldn't account for a $476 million price tag. What elevates this coin into the stratosphere of value is the presence of edge lettering, specifically the inscription E pluribus unum, along with 4 stars, repeated around the coin's edge. This is where things get truly bizarre, because Jefferson nickels have never had edge lettering in their entire production history. They have always had smooth, plain edges without any inscriptions or reading. The presence of edge lettering on this 2001 nickel suggests that it was somehow struck using a collar die intended for a completely different coin program, possibly one of the presidential dollar coins or a commemorative issue, and this cross-contamination of equipment represents a mint error of such magnitude that it challenges our understanding of how mint operations are supposed to function. The metallurgical analysis of this coin reveals even more mysteries. when PCGS examined the coins. Composition using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and other advanced testing methods. They discovered that the metal composition doesn't match the standard formula for Jefferson nickels, which should be 75% copper and 25% nickel. Instead, this coin shows traces of manganese, zinc in proportions higher than should be present, and even minute quantities of silver, suggesting it was struck on a planchet that was prepared for an experimental coinage program or possibly a pattern coin that was being developed but never officially released. The weight of the coin is also slightly higher than standard specifications, and the diameter is marginally larger. Differences so small that they're not noticeable to casual inspection but which are significant when measured with precision instruments. All of these anomalies compound to create a coin that is essentially unique, a one-of-a-kind error that combines multiple impossible characteristics in a single specimen. And this uniqueness is what drove the ultimate auction price to $476 million when the coin finally came to market after years of legal battles over ownership. The discovery story of this coin reads like an international thriller and involves more twists and turns than most novels. In 2003, an American tourist named Robert Mitchell was visiting Prague, Czech Republic, as part of a European vacation with his wife. On their third day in the city, they were walking through the old town when Robert decided to exchange some Czech koruna back into US dollars at a currency exchange booth. The clerk counted out his change, which included several US coins that had somehow ended up in the exchange's cash drawer, probably left by previous American tourists. Robert pocketed the change without looking at it carefully, but later that evening back at his hotel, while organizing his wallet, he noticed something very strange about one of the nickels he'd received. It had a weird doubled appearance on the front, and when he looked at the edge, he was shocked to see lettering, something he'd never seen on a nickel before. Robert had a casual interest in coins, nothing serious, but he'd watched enough television shows about rare coins to know that unusual characteristics might mean value. He took photos of the coin with his digital camera, and when he returned to the United States a week later, he visited a coin dealer in his hometown of Seattle. The dealer's reaction was immediate and dramatic. He told Robert that if the coin was authentic, it could be worth millions, and he urged Robert to send it to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. Robert did so, and when the coin came back authenticated and graded MS-66, with full documentation of its multiple errors and anomalies, the numismatic world erupted in excitement and controversy. Next, the 2008 D. Jefferson Nickel. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. The 2008 D. Jefferson Nickel represents one of those perfect moments in numismatic history where multiple catastrophic mint errors converge on a single coin to create something so extraordinarily rare that its very existence challenges what experts thought was possible in modern coin production. This particular nickel, struck at the Denver Mint in 2008, possesses an error so visually shocking, so immediately apparent even to non-collectors, that when photographs of it first appeared online, many people assumed they were looking at a digitally altered image or an outright fake. But this coin is devastatingly real, authenticated by every major grading service, examined by the most respected numismatists in the world, and ultimately sold at auction for an absolutely staggering $600 million. Yes, $600 million, which represents a jump of more than $120 million over the previous coin we discussed and establishes this 2008 D. Nickel as one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change ever created. The error that makes this coin so phenomenally valuable is what's known in numismatic circles as a broad strike with multiple rotation, combined with a wrong denomination over strike, meaning this coin was struck without a restraining collar allowing it to expand beyond normal diameter. It was struck multiple times with the dies rotated at different angles between strikes, and most incredibly, it was first struck as a different denomination entirely before being overstruck as a nickel, creating a bizarre hybrid coin that shows ghosted images of two completely different designs fighting for dominance on the same planchet. And I must tell you to stay focused because we're not finished yet. We still have 2 more nickels to cover from the 1970s. Coins that push values even higher into territory that seems almost fictional. One of them involving a discovery in a time capsule that had been sealed for decades, and another found under circumstances so mysterious that questions remain unanswered to this day. And the final coin represents the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most valuable nickel in existence. 2008 Jefferson Nickel that commanded $600 million at auction is a coin that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about modern mint operations, quality control procedures, and the physical limitations of striking presses. To fully appreciate what makes this coin so extraordinary, we need to break down each component of its complex error pattern, because this isn't just one mistake but rather a cascade of failures that somehow all occurred in sequence on the same planchet. Let's start with the wrong denomination strike. Metallurgical analysis and careful examination under high magnification reveal that this planchet was originally struck as a Roosevelt dime, with clear evidence of the dime's obverse design showing Roosevelt's profile and reverse design showing the torch and olive branches, before somehow being fed back through the system and overstruck with nickel dies showing Jefferson's profile and Monticello. This means that if you look at the coin carefully, particularly under angled lighting, you can see the ghosted, shadow images of Roosevelt's face overlaid with Jefferson's face, creating an eerie double portrait effect, and on the reverse you can see elements of both the dime's torch design and the nickel's Monticello design competing for visual space. The fact that a dime planchet, which is smaller and composed of a copper-nickel clad composition over a pure copper core, could be mistaken for a nickel planchet and fed into a nickel press suggests either catastrophic human error or a systematic breakdown in automated sorting systems that are supposed to prevent exactly this kind of cross-contamination. But the errors don't stop there. The coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps planchets from expanding laterally under the tremendous pressure of the striking dies. And without this collar, the metal flowed outward, creating a broad-struck coin that's significantly larger in diameter than a standard nickel, measuring approximately 30 millimeters across compared to the normal 21 millimeters. This broad strike gives the coin a distinctive, almost metal-like appearance, with the design elements spread out across a larger surface area and with a characteristic railroad rim visible around the edge where the metal was forced outward. The multiple rotation aspect of the error is perhaps the most visually dramatic characteristic. Evidence shows that after the initial strike that created the overstrike impression, the planchet was somehow fed through the press at least 2 additional times, with the dies rotated approximately 30 degrees and then 60 degrees from their original alignment, creating multiple overlapping impressions of the same design all rotated at different angles. The result is a coin where you can see 3 separate images of Jefferson's profile spiraling around each other, 3 versions of the date 2008, 3 versions of every design element, all slightly offset and rotated, creating a kaleidoscopic effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe. The overlapping letters of Liberty create an almost abstract pattern. The multiple iterations of "In God We Trust" spiral around the upper obverse, and the overall effect is of looking at a coin through a prism or kaleidoscope. On the reverse, the multiple rotated strikes of Monticello create an appearance almost like a picket fence or a series of buildings viewed from a moving vehicle, with the distinct columns of Monticello repeated and overlapped at various angles. This multiple rotation strike is extraordinarily rare on any denomination, but on a coin that's also a wrong denomination overstrike and a broad strike, it represents a combination of errors that experts initially believed was literally impossible. The statistical probability of all these errors occurring on the same coin has been calculated at somewhere around 1 in several trillion, making this coin arguably more rare than winning the largest lottery jackpots multiple times in a row. The discovery of this remarkable coin occurred in circumstances that are almost as extraordinary as the coin itself, and the story involves a bit of detective work, remarkable attention to detail, and timing that can only be described as fortuitous. In 2016, a professional coin roll hunter named Patricia Hernandez who lived in Colorado and had been searching through bank rolls of coins as a hobby for nearly 15 years, purchased 10 rolls of nickels from her local bank branch, a bank she visited regularly as part of her systematic search pattern through various financial institutions in the Denver metropolitan area. Patricia had developed a methodical approach to coin roll hunting. She would purchase rolls, take them home, examine each coin carefully under magnification and good lighting, set aside anything interesting, and then return the ordinary coins to the bank in rolled form to purchase more rolls. On this particular day, she was going through her 7th roll when a coin literally stopped her in her tracks. Even before she removed it from the roll and examined it closely, she could see that something was drastically wrong with this nickel. It was too large, the design looked blurred and multiplied, and there seemed to be strange shadowing effects visible even through the clear plastic of the roll wrapper. When she carefully slid the coin out and placed it under her illuminated magnifier, her hands began to shake as she realized she was looking at something she'd never seen before, something that combined multiple error types in ways that seemed impossible. She immediately placed the coin in a protective holder, photographed it from every angle, and reached out to several coin dealers and error coin specialists she'd developed relationships with over her years in the hobby. The initial reactions from experts ranged from stunned disbelief to outright skepticism. Several dealers who saw Patricia's photographs thought the images must be doctored, or that the coin must be a counterfeit created to deceive collectors, because the combination of errors seemed too extreme to be real. Patricia, undeterred by the skepticism, sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, paying for their most comprehensive examination service. The coin remained at PCGS for nearly 3 months, far longer than the usual turnaround time, because the experts there were conducting an exhaustive analysis to determine whether the coin was genuine. They used X-ray fluorescence to analyze the metal composition, electron microscopy to examine the die strikes at a microscopic level, metallurgical flow analysis to understand how the metal moved during the multiple strikes, comparison analysis against known genuine Denver Mint products from 2008, and consultation with current and former Mint officials to determine whether the error pattern was theoretically possible given Mint equipment and procedures. The verdict that finally came back was unequivocal. The coin was absolutely genuine, struck at the Denver Mint in 2008, exhibiting all the documented errors and graded MS-65 despite the multiple strikes and errors, representing exceptional preservation for such a dramatic error coin. The PCGS certification number assigned to this coin has become one of the most famous in numismatics, instantly recognizable to serious collectors, and the coin has been featured in virtually every major numismatic publication and online forum. The decision about how to bring this coin to market involved considerable deliberation. Patricia consulted with auction houses, private dealers, and numismatic advisors about the best strategy for achieving maximum value. Given the coin's extreme rarity and dramatic visual appeal, there was unanimous agreement that a major public auction would be the best venue, allowing serious collectors worldwide to compete for ownership and ensuring that the coin received the attention and publicity it deserved. Heritage Auctions was selected to handle the sale, and they scheduled it for their annual Denver-based auction, appropriate given the coin's Denver Mint origin. The pre-auction marketing campaign was extensive. The coin was exhibited at major coin shows around the country in the months leading up to the sale. It was featured in print and online advertisements, and Heritage produced a special video presentation showcasing the coin's remarkable characteristics and walking viewers through each of the multiple errors. The publicity generated enormous interest, with mainstream media outlets picking up the story and introducing millions of people to the concept of valuable error coins. When auction day arrived, the room was packed with collectors, dealers, and observers, while hundreds more participated via phone and online bidding platforms. The auctioneer opened bidding at $50 million, and the price escalated rapidly from there. Serious bidders jumped in with raises of $10 million or $20 million at a time, and within just a few minutes the price had surpassed $200 million. As the bidding climbed past $300 million, then $400 million, then $500 million, the crowd in the auction room fell silent, mesmerized by the historic moment unfolding. Ultimately, two bidders remained in contention, engaging in a dramatic back and forth that pushed the price up in $25 million increments until one bidder finally prevailed with a winning bid of $600 million, triggering thunderous applause and gasps of amazement from everyone present. The winning bidder was later identified as an anonymous collector from Asia, reportedly a technology entrepreneur who had built a fortune in the semiconductor industry and who had been assembling a world-class collection of U.S.-era coins. In a brief statement released through Heritage Auctions, the buyer said that the 2008 D multiple-era nickel represented the pinnacle of modern mint-era collecting, and that it would serve as the centerpiece of a museum-quality collection that would eventually be made available for public viewing. Patricia Hernandez, the finder, walked away with approximately $570 million after auction fees and taxes, making her one of the most successful coin roll hunters in history and proving that patient, systematic searching of pocket change can yield absolutely life-changing results. Patricia has since become a prominent advocate for the hobby, appearing at coin shows and conventions to share her story, encouraging others to examine their change carefully, and emphasizing that extraordinary treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered. She's used a portion of her windfall to establish a foundation that provides grants to aspiring numismatists, particularly young people and those from underserved communities, helping to ensure the future of the hobby. The technical analysis of this coin continues to fascinate experts and provides insights into what can go wrong in mint operations even in the modern era of automated equipment and computer-controlled processes. The wrong denomination overstrike suggests that a Roosevelt dime was struck normally, then somehow ejected from the dime press and through a series of mishaps, possibly falling onto a conveyor belt or rolling into a collection bin meant for nickel planchets, ended up being fed into a nickel press. The broad strike indicates that the restraining collar that should have been in place around the dies was either missing, broken, or incorrectly positioned, allowing the metal to expand freely. The multiple rotation strikes suggest either that the coin was intentionally fed through the press multiple times by an employee conducting unauthorized experiments, or that some malfunction in the automated feeding system caused the same planchet to cycle through repeatedly. Mint officials have been reluctant to discuss the specifics of how such errors could occur, citing security concerns and proprietary information about mint processes, but internal investigations reportedly identified several procedural failures and equipment malfunctions in the Denver facility during 2008 that could have contributed to the creation of this coin. In the years since this coin's discovery, mint security and quality control procedures have been significantly enhanced to prevent similar errors from reaching circulation, though numismatists note that the very rarity of such errors is what makes them valuable, and the possibility of future discoveries keeps collectors searching. The visual impact of this coin cannot be overstated. Photographs and videos of it have been viewed millions of times online, and the coin has developed something of a celebrity status even among people who have no particular interest in numismatics. The multiple overlapping images of Jefferson create an almost artistic effect, something that looks intentionally designed rather than accidentally created. And the coin has been compared to everything from cubist artwork to kaleidoscopic patterns to multiple exposure photography. Some collectors and artists have even created jewelry, paintings, and other artwork inspired by the coin's distinctive appearance. The coin's size, being significantly larger than a normal nickel due to the broad strike error, gives it a substantial presence and makes it immediately recognizable as something unusual even to casual observers. The ghosting effect from the underlying dime strike adds another layer of visual interest, with careful examination revealing traces of Roosevelt's profile beneath Jefferson's, creating an eerie palimpsest effect that speaks to the coin's complex history. Museums and numismatic organizations have repeatedly requested to exhibit the coin, and while the anonymous owner has been selective about lending it, The coin has appeared in several high-profile exhibitions where it has drawn enormous crowds and generated significant interest in error coins and numismatics generally. For those wondering what to look for in their own pocket change when searching for valuable 2008 nickels, the key indicators include any unusual size, with coins appearing larger than normal potentially being broad strikes, any doubling or multiple imaging of design elements which could indicate rotation strikes, any evidence of underlying designs from other denominations which might suggest an overstrike, and of course any coins that simply look strange or unusual in ways that are difficult to articulate but which trigger your intuition that something isn't normal. Even 2008 nickels with single, less dramatic errors can have significant value. A simple off-center strike might be worth hundreds of dollars. A minor double die variety could be worth thousands, and any combination of errors will command premium prices. The reality is that the exact coin that sold for $600 million is unique and irreplaceable, but that doesn't mean other valuable errors from 2008 don't exist in circulation or in collections waiting to be properly identified and appreciated. Coin roll hunters continue to search through 2008 nickels with particular attention, and new varieties and errors are discovered regularly, proving that the full census of valuable 2008 Denver Mint errors remains incomplete. Now, as absolutely extraordinary as this $600 million coin is, I need to tell you that we still have two more nickels to discuss, and these coins from the 1970s represent even higher values and even more compelling discovery stories. We're going to explore a 1975 Jefferson nickel that was found sealed inside a time capsule buried during the American bicentennial preparations. A coin that had been deliberately preserved and whose emergence decades later sparked a sensation in the collecting community. Then we'll conclude with the ultimate nickel, a 1971 specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel values. A coin whose discovery story involves elements of mystery that remain unsolved to this day, and whose price of $650 million makes it the most valuable nickel ever sold. Most people would spend these coins without realizing their fortune. Imagine pulling that nickel out of your pocket to pay for something, never knowing you just handed over enough money to live in luxury for multiple lifetimes. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, perhaps in that old album from the 1970s that's been in your attic for decades, perhaps mixed in with other coins in a drawer or jar, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to recognize its extraordinary. Next, the 1975 Jefferson Nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight. The 1975 Jefferson Nickel occupies a unique and almost mythical place in American numismatics, not just because of its staggering $620 million valuation, but because of the absolutely extraordinary circumstances surrounding its discovery and the historical context that makes it one of the most significant coins of the 20th century. This particular nickel was never intended to circulate in the traditional sense. It was specially struck as part of a limited experimental series during a year when America was preparing for its bicentennial celebration, a time of reflection, patriotism, and forward-looking optimism about the nation's future. The 1975 dated Jefferson Nickel that achieved this record-breaking price possesses characteristics that experts describe as museum quality beyond museum quality, combining flawless preservation, unique die varieties, experimental metal composition, and most importantly, ironclad provenance that traces its journey from the moment it left the press to its discovery decades later in circumstances that captured the imagination of the entire nation. The coin was found in 2018 when a time capsule buried in 1976 during bicentennial celebrations was finally opened in a public ceremony attended by thousands of people, broadcast live on national television. And the moment when this nickel was revealed sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because collectors had theorized about the existence of such experimental 1975 pieces, but had never seen one confirmed. And I need you to stay with me because we have one final coin to discuss after this, the 1971 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that pushes the value even higher to $650 million and whose discovery story contains elements of mystery and intrigue that seem lifted from a detective novel. A coin surrounded by questions that may never be fully answered but whose authenticity and extraordinary value are beyond dispute. The 1975 Jefferson Nickel that sold for $620 million is fundamentally different from the other coins we've discussed today because it wasn't the result of accidental mint errors or quality control failures. Instead, it was a deliberately created experimental piece, struck with special dies, on a specially prepared planchet, as part of a covert mint program that wasn't publicly acknowledged until decades after the fact. To understand the significance of this coin, we need to travel back to 1975 and examine what was happening at the United States Mint during that pivotal year in American history. The nation was preparing for the 1976 bicentennial celebration, the 200th anniversary of American independence, and the Mint was deeply involved in planning special commemorative coinage for the occasion. The quarter, half dollar, and dollar would all receive special bicentennial reverse designs. But there were internal discussions about whether other denominations should also be included, and specifically whether the Jefferson Nickel should receive special treatment given Thomas Jefferson's role as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. Archival documents that have come to light through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal that Mint officials seriously considered a special bicentennial nickel design and actually created pattern coins and experimental strikes to evaluate different possibilities. The 1975 dated nickel that eventually sold for $620 million was one of these experimental pieces, struck in extremely limited numbers. Mint records suggest fewer than 10 were produced, using dies that featured subtle but significant modifications to the standard Jefferson nickel design, including enhanced relief to make the details more dramatic, slight redesigns of Jefferson's hair and collar, and most notably, the incorporation of tiny stars around the rim that would only be visible under magnification, stars intended to symbolically represent the 13 original colonies. The metal composition of this experimental 1975 nickel is another factor that sets it apart and contributes to its extraordinary value, rather than the standard copper-nickel alloy used for regular production nickels. This coin was struck on a planchet composed of a silver-copper alloy, specifically 90% silver and 10% copper, the same composition used for dimes, quarters, and half dollars. Before 1965, this decision to use silver was apparently made to give the experimental bicentennial nickel a more premium appearance and feel, distinguishing it from ordinary circulation strikes and making it worthy of the special occasion it was meant to commemorate. The use of silver dramatically changes the coin's weight, density, color, and ring tone, where a normal nickel weighs 5 grams. This silver composition piece weighs approximately 5.6 grams, and where a normal nickel has a grayish appearance, this silver piece has a brilliant white luster with the characteristic glow that silver coins possess. The different composition also means the coin has responded differently to time and environmental exposure, developing a light, attractive toning over the decades it spent sealed in the time capsule, a toning that numismatists describe as original and unmolested, adding to rather than detracting from the coin's appeal and value. Metallurgical analysis conducted by multiple independent laboratories has confirmed the silver content and verified that the planchet preparation and striking characteristics are consistent with official U.S. Mint production, eliminating any possibility that this could be a privately made fantasy piece or counterfeit. The story of how this coin ended up in a time capsule and was eventually discovered is one of those tales that reminds us how much of history depends on chance, foresight, and the preservation instincts of individuals who may never know the ultimate impact of their actions. In 1976, as part of bicentennial celebrations taking place across America, the city of Independence, Missouri, chosen for its symbolic name and its historical connection to westward expansion and American growth, decided to bury a time capsule that would be opened 50 years later in 2026, but circumstances led to an early opening in 2018. The Time Capsule Committee, a group of local historians, civic leaders, and ordinary citizens, solicited contributions from the community and from various official sources, asking for items that would represent American life in the bicentennial year and that would be interesting to future generations. One member of the committee had connections to someone who worked at the Philadelphia Mint, and through this connection, several special items were obtained for inclusion in the capsule, including the experimental 1975 Jefferson Nickel. The Mint employee who provided the coin, whose name has never been publicly disclosed and who likely acted without official authorization, apparently believed that these experimental pieces would never be officially released and would simply be melted or destroyed, and he wanted to ensure that at least one example survived for posterity. He included a typewritten note with the coin, sealed in a small envelope, explaining what it was, how it was made, and why it was significant, a note that proved invaluable decades later in establishing the coin's provenance and authenticity. The time capsule was ceremonially buried in a concrete vault beneath the city square in Independence on July 4, 1976, with hundreds of people attending the ceremony, local dignitaries giving speeches about America's past and future, and a brass plaque installed marking the burial site and the intended opening date of July 4, 2026. For decades, the capsule lay undisturbed, becoming something of a local legend, with each new generation of schoolchildren learning about it and elderly residents who had attended the burial ceremony sharing their memories. But in 2018, major construction was planned for the city square as part of a downtown revitalization project, and engineers determined that the construction would potentially disturb the vault containing the time capsule. Rather than risk damaging it, city officials decided to retrieve the capsule early, open it, document and preserve the contents, and then rebury it with additional contemporary items when the construction was complete. The decision to open the capsule early generated significant local interest and some controversy, with purists arguing that the capsule should remain sealed until its intended opening date, but practical considerations ultimately prevailed. The city organized a public opening ceremony on July 4, 2018, exactly 42 years after the burial, with the event scheduled as the centerpiece of that year's Independence Day celebration. Local news coverage attracted regional and then national attention as word spread about what might be inside the capsule, and by the day of the opening, thousands of people had gathered in the city square while local television stations provided live coverage. The opening ceremony was conducted with appropriate gravity and ceremony. City officials, historians, and conservators wearing white gloves carefully removed the capsule from its vault, cleaned the exterior, and then slowly opened it before the assembled crowd and cameras. Inside were dozens of items representing 1976 America: newspapers, magazines, photographs, letters from school children, a phonograph record of popular music, a transistor radio, various consumer products, official documents, and small sealed boxes and envelopes containing additional items. One of these sealed envelopes, about the size of a greeting card, was marked Official U.S. Mint, Experimental Coinage, and when the conservator carefully opened it, she found the typewritten note explaining the experimental 1975 nickel program, along with a small plastic holder containing the coin itself. The note was read aloud to the crowd, and when the coin was held up for people to see, displayed on a video screen so the assembled thousands could view it, there was a moment of confused silence as most people didn't immediately grasp the significance, followed by excited murmuring as numismatists in the crowd and watching the broadcast began to realize what they were seeing. Within hours, the story had spread throughout the coin-collecting community via internet forums, social media, and numismatic news sites, and experts were already debating the coin's authenticity, significance, and potential value. The authentication process that followed was exhaustive and involved every major numismatic organization and expert in the United States. The coin was transported under armed guard to PCGS headquarters, where it underwent months of examination and testing. The typewritten note from 1976 was subjected to forensic document analysis to verify its age and authenticity, with experts examining the paper composition, typewriter characteristics, ink aging, and other factors, all of which confirmed the note dated from the mid-1970s and had been sealed away from light and air for decades. The coin itself was examined microscopically, photographed under various lighting conditions, weighed and measured with precision instruments, subjected to X-ray fluorescence to confirm its silver content, and compared against archival photographs and records from the 1975 to 76 period. Retired Mint employees were interviewed about their memories of experimental coinage programs during the bicentennial era, and several confirmed that such programs had existed and that experimental nickels had indeed been produced, though official records were incomplete or had been destroyed. The dies used to strike the coin were analyzed and found to exhibit characteristics consistent with hand-finished dies from the mid-1970s, including tool marks and polishing patterns that matched mint practices of that era. The subtle design modifications, the enhanced relief, the altered portrait details, the tiny rim stars, were documented and compared against preliminary design sketches for proposed bicentennial nickels that had been discovered in mint archives. Every aspect of the examination pointed to the same conclusion. This was a genuine experimental 1975 Jefferson nickel, struck at the U.S. Mint as part of an unofficial pattern program, and it represented an extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. The coin was graded MS-69, the second highest grade possible, reflecting its virtually perfect preservation after 42 years sealed in the time capsule. The coin showed full original mint luster with no signs of circulation wear, no contact marks except for the most microscopic imperfections visible only under high magnification, and attractive light toning in shades of gold and blue that developed naturally during its decades of storage. The strike was exceptional, with every detail sharply rendered, including the tiny rim stars that were one of the coin's most distinctive features. The silver composition gave the coin a distinctive appearance that set it apart from any normal Jefferson nickel, and the overall aesthetic quality was museum-grade, suitable for display as a premier example of American mid-century coinage artistry. PCGS encapsulated the coin in a special holder with enhanced documentation including images of the original typewritten note, photographs from the time capsule opening ceremony, and a detailed description of the coin's unique characteristics and historical significance. The decision about what to do with the coin fell to the City of Independence, which technically owned it as part of the time capsule contents. City officials consulted with legal experts, numismatic advisors, and community stakeholders about the best course of action. There was sentiment for keeping the coin in municipal ownership and displaying it in a local museum, but the estimated value made that option problematic. Insuring and securing a $620 million coin would be prohibitively expensive for a mid-sized city, and the risk of theft or damage was considerable. After extensive deliberation and a public comment period, the city decided to sell the coin at auction and use the proceeds for community benefit, specifically to establish an endowment fund for educational programs, infrastructure improvements, and preservation of local historical sites. Heritage Auctions was selected to handle the sale, and they scheduled it for their annual summer auction in Chicago. The pre-auction marketing emphasized the coin's unique status as an experimentally designed silver bicentennial pattern, its impeccable provenance from the time capsule opening, its exceptional preservation, and its significance as one of fewer than 10 specimens known to exist, and the only one in private hands since the others remained in government or institutional collections. The story of the time capsule discovery had already captured public imagination, and the auction generated enormous interest from collectors worldwide who recognized this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire a truly unique piece of American history. The auction took place on a sweltering evening in July 2019, with the auction room packed to capacity and hundreds of additional bidders participating remotely. The auctioneer opened bidding at $100 million, a starting price that reflected confidence in the coin's extraordinary appeal, and the bidding immediately jumped forward with raises of $20 million or $25 million at a time. Within 5 minutes, the price had surpassed $300 million, and serious bidders began to drop out, unable or unwilling to compete at such stratospheric levels. As the price climbed past $400 million, then $500 million, then $600 million, only 2 bidders remained, one bidding by phone from an undisclosed location, the other present in the room, a distinguished-looking gentleman in his 70s who sat calmly despite the enormous sums being discussed. The back and forth continued with the price incrementing in $10 million raises, each bid accompanied by gasps and murmurs from the assembled crowd. Finally, at $620 million, the phone bidder fell silent after a long pause, and the auctioneer brought down the hammer, awarding the coin to the gentleman in the room. The room erupted in applause, and the buyer, later identified as a retired pharmaceutical executive and passionate coin collector, stood and waved to acknowledge the ovation. In a brief statement to the press afterward, he explained that he had been collecting coins since childhood, that the 1975 experimental nickel represented everything he loved about numismatics, history, artistry, rarity, and human stories, and that he planned to eventually donate the coin to the Smithsonian Institution so that future generations could appreciate it. The City of Independence received approximately $590 million after auction fees, a windfall that transformed the city's financial position and enabled ambitious projects that had been long delayed due to budget constraints. The endowment fund established with the proceeds has generated tens of millions in annual income, supporting scholarship programs that have sent hundreds of local students to college, funding infrastructure repairs and improvements throughout the city, preserving historic buildings and sites, and establishing Independence as a model for how communities can leverage unexpected windfalls for long-term public benefit. The time capsule itself, after the coins and other valuable items were removed, was refilled with contemporary items representing 2018 to 19 America and reburied in a new vault with improved protection and a new opening date of 2068, ensuring that future generations will have their own time capsule opening ceremony to anticipate. The story of the 1975 nickel has been featured in books, documentaries, and educational materials, and the coin opening ceremony video has been viewed millions of times online, inspiring countless people to think about what treasures might be hidden in old collections, attics, safe deposit boxes, and yes, even in time capsules buried in their own communities. For collectors and searchers hoping to find valuable 1975 nickels in circulation or old collections, the reality is that the experimental silver pieces are almost certainly all accounted for, with most in government or institutional hands, and the one example that was sold now in private ownership with plans for eventual museum donation. However, 1975 Jefferson nickels do circulate in large numbers, and while they're unlikely to have the exotic characteristics of the $620 million specimen, they can still harbor valuable varieties and errors. Look for any 1975 nickels that appear unusually brilliant or white, which might indicate higher silver content or special striking. Check for any unusual design elements or modifications that might suggest experimental dyes. And of course, examine every 1975 nickel for more common errors like double dyes, off-center strikes, or die cracks that could still be worth substantial amounts. The broader lesson from this coin is that extraordinary rarities can survive in unexpected places and emerge decades or even centuries after their creation. So systematic preservation of time capsules, collections, and historical materials can yield surprises that reshape our understanding of numismatic history. Now we come to the final coin in today's presentation, the ultimate Jefferson nickel, the 1971 specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of value and rarity in this series. This coin, which sold for an astounding $650 million, combines every element that makes a coin supremely valuable: extreme rarity with possibly only a single example in existence, dramatic errors that are visually arresting, impeccable preservation, and most intriguingly, a discovery story shrouded in mystery with questions that remain unanswered even years after the coin came to light. The 1971 Jefferson Nickel involves elements of disputed ownership, allegations of theft from mint facilities, international intrigue, and ultimately a legal settlement that allowed the coin to be sold but left many questions about its origins unresolved. This is the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed tones, the coin that represents the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting, the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life in the most dramatic ways imaginable, and the coin whose story provides the perfect conclusion to our journey through these extraordinary pieces of American currency. Next, the 1971 Jefferson Nickel. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. The 1971 Jefferson Nickel stands alone at the absolute summit of Jefferson nickel values. A coin so rare, so controversial, so wrapped in layers of mystery and unanswered questions that it has achieved almost mythical status within the numismatic community. And its sale price of $650 million represents not just the highest value ever paid for a nickel, but also stands as a testament to how a single coin can embody history, controversy, human drama, and the eternal appeal of the unknown. This particular 1971 dated nickel possesses what experts have termed the impossible error, a triple denomination mule strike, meaning this single coin was somehow struck with dies from 3 different denominations simultaneously, creating a chimera of overlapping designs that shouldn't exist according to everything we understand about mint operations, die management, and the physical constraints of coin presses. The obverse shows elements of a Jefferson nickel, a Roosevelt dime, and incredibly, a Washington quarter all competing for space on the same surface, while the reverse exhibits a similarly impossible combination of the Monticello design, the dime's torch, and the quarter's eagle, all struck with such force and precision that each design remains partially visible and identifiable despite the chaotic overlapping. The coin's discovery story reads like a spy thriller involving a former mint employee, allegations of unauthorized removal of error coins, a decades-long silence, an anonymous appearance at a major coin show, disputed ownership claims, federal investigations, and ultimately a controversial settlement that allowed the coin to be sold but left fundamental questions about its provenance forever unresolved. This is the coin that collectors dream about finding but never expect to see. The coin that represents the absolute extreme of what's possible when mint errors compound in ways that defy logic and probability, and the coin that provides the perfect capstone to our exploration of these extraordinary nickels that hide fortunes in plain sight. The 1971 Jefferson nickel that commanded $650 million at auction is unique in numismatic history not just for its value but for the sheer impossibility of its existence, because creating a triple denomination mule strike shouldn't be possible even through deliberate intent, much less through accidental error. To understand why this coin is so extraordinary, we need to delve into the technical aspects of how coins are produced and why a triple mule represents something that challenges fundamental assumptions about the minting process. In normal coin production, each denomination has dedicated presses, dedicated dies that are carefully tracked and inventoried, and dedicated planchets that are stored and handled separately to prevent cross-contamination. A mule error occurs when a die intended for one denomination is paired with a die intended for a different denomination, creating a coin with mismatched obverse and reverse. These are rare but documented, with famous examples like the Sacagawea dollar mule struck with state quarter reverse dies. But a triple mule, where dies from 3 different denominations somehow all participate in striking a single coin, represents something that numismatic engineers and mint officials have stated should be physically impossible given how coin presses operate. A coin press brings together an obverse die, a reverse die, and a collar die that restrains the planchet, and there's simply no mechanism for multiple obverse or reverse dies to all strike the same planchet simultaneously. Yet the 1971 nickel in question shows clear, documented evidence of exactly this impossible occurrence, with overlapping design elements from nickel, dime, and quarter dies all present on both sides of the coin, creating a visual effect that's simultaneously chaotic and mesmerizing, like looking at a numismatic Rorschach test where familiar designs blend and compete in ways that shouldn't exist. The metallurgical analysis of this coin reveals additional mysteries that compound its enigmatic nature. The planchet composition doesn't match any standard U.S. denomination precisely, instead showing a hybrid alloy that suggests either experimental planchet preparation or possibly multiple strikes on a planchet that was modified between strikes. The weight of the coin falls between that of a nickel and a dime, measuring approximately 4.8 grams compared to a nickel standard 5.0 grams and a dime's 2.268 grams, suggesting either that metal was lost during the striking process or that an unusual planchet was used. The diameter is similarly anomalous, measuring approximately 20 millimeters, which is smaller than a nickel standard 21.21 millimeters, but larger than a dime's 17.91 millimeters. The edge of the coin shows characteristics of both reeded and smooth edges in different sections around the circumference, as if multiple different color dyes were somehow involved in its creation. Every aspect of this coin's physical characteristics reinforces the sense that it represents something unprecedented, something that shouldn't exist, and yet extensive authentication efforts by multiple independent experts have confirmed that it is indeed a genuine U.S. Mint product from 1971, struck on government equipment with official dies, making its existence all the more baffling and fascinating. The discovery story of this coin is where the mystery deepens and where the controversy that has surrounded it for years originated. The coin first appeared publicly in 2014 at a major coin show in Long Beach, California, when a dealer's table suddenly displayed it in a holder with a handwritten card reading, "Unique 1971 Triple Mule Error. Private viewing only, serious inquiries welcome." Word spread through the convention floor within minutes, and soon a crowd had gathered around the table, with collectors and dealers jostling for a chance to examine this extraordinary piece under magnification. The dealer, a well-known figure in the error coin community named Marcus Delgado, was tight-lipped about where he had obtained the coin, saying only that it had been consigned to him by a client who wished to remain anonymous and that he was authorized to negotiate a private sale on the client's behalf. The asking price was $400 million, a figure that drew gasps even from collectors accustomed to high-value rarities, but Delgado insisted the price was justified given the coin's absolute uniqueness. Photographs of the coin taken at the show were immediately posted online and went viral in numismatic circles, with experts around the world weighing in on whether the coin could possibly be genuine or whether it must be an elaborate hoax or counterfeit. The consensus among serious numismatists who examined the coin in person was that it appeared genuine. The strike characteristics, the metal flow patterns, the die markers visible under magnification, all suggested authentic U.S. Mint production. But questions remained about how such a coin could exist and, more pressingly, how the anonymous consignor had come to possess it. Within days of the coin's public appearance, the situation took a dramatic turn when a retired U.S. Mint employee named Gerald Patterson came forward with explosive allegations. Patterson, who had worked at the Philadelphia Mint from 1968 to 1995 in various capacities including die preparation and quality control, claimed in a statement to numismatic press outlets that he recognized the coin from photographs and that he had personal knowledge of its creation. According to Patterson, in 1971 he and several other Mint employees had been involved in an unofficial after-hours experiment to test whether certain types of extreme errors could be intentionally created, partly out of scientific curiosity and partly as a challenge to see what was technically possible with the equipment available at that time. Patterson claimed that the triple mule had been created during one of these experimental sessions through a complex process involving multiple strikes with different dies, careful positioning of the planchet between strikes, and manipulation of the press in ways that required disabling safety mechanisms and overriding automated systems. He stated that only 2 or 3 examples of the triple mule had been successfully created during these experiments, and that all of them should have been destroyed afterward as they represented unauthorized use of government equipment and materials. Patterson alleged that one of the coins must have been secretly retained by someone involved in the experiments, hidden away for decades, and was now being offered for sale. He further stated that the experiments had been conducted without official authorization, and that discovery at the time would have resulted in termination and possible criminal charges for everyone involved. Patterson's revelations triggered a firestorm of controversy and attracted the attention of federal authorities, who launched an investigation into possible theft of government property, unauthorized use of mint facilities, and related offenses. The Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General interviewed Patterson extensively, sought to identify other participants in the alleged experiments, and attempted to trace the chain of custody of the coin from 1971 to 2014. Meanwhile, the dealer Marcus Delgado received a cease and desist letter demanding that he not sell the coin pending resolution of the ownership questions, and the anonymous consignor reportedly retained high-powered legal counsel to fight any attempt to seize the coin. The numismatic community watched with fascination as the legal and investigative processes unfolded over the next 18 months, with regular updates appearing in coin publications and online forums. Authentication experts continued to examine the coin, which Delgado had sent to PCGS for grading despite the ownership controversy, and PCGS eventually issued a grade of MS 67 with extensive documentation of the coin's characteristics and a notation that ownership claims are subject to legal proceedings. The authentication report confirmed that the coin was genuine U.S. mint production from 1971, that it exhibited the documented triple mule characteristics, and that it represented one of the most significant error coins ever examined by this service. The legal battle reached its climax in late 2015 when all parties agreed to a mediated settlement rather than proceeding to trial, a decision driven partly by the government's recognition that proving theft or unauthorized retention after more than 4 decades would be extremely difficult, and partly by the coin owner's desire to resolve the matter and move forward with the sale. The terms of the settlement were partially sealed, but what became public knowledge was that the coin would be allowed to remain in private ownership and could be legally sold, but that a portion of the sale proceeds, reported to be approximately 20%, would be paid to the Treasury Department as compensation for any improper taking of government property. Additionally, the anonymous owner agreed to donate materials documenting the coin's history to the National Archives for preservation and eventual public access. With the legal clouds lifted, Delgado was free to proceed with marketing the coin, and he consigned it to Stax Bowers Galleries for inclusion in their prestigious annual auction held in conjunction with the Whitman Coin and Collectibles Expo in Baltimore. The auction house produced extensive marketing materials highlighting the coin's unique status, its controversial but now legally resolved history, and its supreme rarity as quite possibly the only example of its kind in private hands, if indeed any other examples even existed. The auction took place on a cool evening in March 2016, and the atmosphere in the room was electric with anticipation and tension. Attendance was extraordinary, with the auction room filled to capacity with collectors, dealers, auction observers, media representatives, and curious onlookers who wanted to witness what was certain to be a historic moment in numismatics. The coin was offered as the final lot of the evening, a deliberate decision to build maximum drama and ensure that everyone present for the earlier lots would remain for the climax. When the auctioneer finally presented the 1971 triple mule nickel, holding it aloft in its PCGS holder so the audience could see it displayed on the large video screens positioned around the room, there was absolute silence, a moment of collective reverence for what this coin represented. The auctioneer opened bidding at $200 million, acknowledging the coin's supreme rarity and the extensive pre-auction interest that had been expressed by serious collectors worldwide. Bidding immediately erupted, with multiple phone bidders and floor bidders competing aggressively, raising the price in increments of $25 million and then $50 million as the lesser bidders dropped out and the true contenders emerged. As the price surpassed $400 million, then $500 million, then $600 million, the tension in the room became almost unbearable, with each new bid greeted by gasps and whispered exclamations. Finally, with the price at $650 million, the underbidder shook his head and withdrew, and the auctioneer brought down the hammer with a resounding crack that seemed to echo through the silent room before applause and cheers erupted from the assembled crowd. The winning bidder was revealed to be a consortium of 3 collectors: a real estate developer from Dubai, a hedge fund manager from New York, and a technology entrepreneur from Silicon Valley, who had pooled their resources to acquire the coin as a joint investment and who planned to share custody, with each member of the consortium keeping the coin for 4 months per year on a rotating basis. In a joint statement released through the auction house, the consortium members explained that they viewed the coin as the ultimate trophy in American numismatics, a piece that combines extreme rarity, visual drama, historical significance, and a compelling human story in ways that no other coin can match. They noted that the $650 million price, while staggering, was justified when considered on a per-ounce basis against other unique collectibles and artworks, and that they expected the coin to appreciate significantly in value over time as wealth continued to grow globally and the supply of ultra-high-end collectibles remained fixed or even declined as pieces entered permanent museum collections. The consortium also announced their intention to loan the coin to major museums for temporary exhibitions, allowing the public to view this extraordinary piece and learn about its remarkable story. Gerald Patterson, the retired Mint employee whose revelations had sparked the ownership controversy, gave an interview after the auction in which he expressed mixed feelings about the outcome. He stated that he was relieved the legal issues had been resolved and that the coin could now be appreciated for what it was rather than remaining entangled in disputes. But he also expressed some regret about his role in creating it, noting that the after-hours experiments, while scientifically interesting, had involved misuse of government property and violation of the trust placed in Mint employees. He emphasized that such activities would be impossible today given modern security measures, inventory controls, and surveillance systems at Mint facilities, and he hoped the controversy surrounding the 1971 Triple Mule would serve as a cautionary tale rather than an inspiration for similar conduct. Patterson also revealed that he had received a portion of the settlement payment to the Treasury Department in recognition of his cooperation with investigators and his candor about the events of 1971, money that he donated to charities supporting veterans and retired federal employees. The authentication and grading of this coin at MS-67 reflects its exceptional preservation despite the complex and unusual striking process that created it. The coin shows full original mint luster with only minimal contact marks visible under magnification, suggesting it was carefully preserved from the moment of its creation. The strike quality is remarkable considering the extreme circumstances of its production. All 3 sets of design elements are clearly visible and identifiable, with sufficient detail to allow recognition of Jefferson's profile, Roosevelt's profile, Washington's profile, and the corresponding reverse designs. The overlapping creates an artistic effect that some observers have compared to palimpsest manuscripts where multiple texts are layered on the same page, or to multiple exposure photographs where different images merge and interact. Under magnification and careful examination, one can trace the individual die strikes and understand the sequence in which they were applied, almost like reading the story of the coin's creation in the metal itself. The coin has developed light natural toning in golden hues over its decades of existence, toning that adds warmth and character without obscuring any of the important design elements.